All right, welcome back to College Football Addiction. A little bit of a rough day in the Big 12 where there's some good news, there's some bad news for most of the teams here in the Big 12. Obviously, probably the best day for Iowa State, who came into this thing trailing and now controls their own destiny. So we'll talk about it. But really, a missed opportunity for the Big 12 with so many SEC teams losing yesterday and so many teams that were likely going to drop behind you in the rankings. The Big 12 really had a chance yesterday to maybe get their second team into the playoff, maybe play their way back into an at-large bid. And really, with some of the losses that happened, it seems pretty unlikely that that could happen. It seems pretty unlikely that that would be the case. We'll talk about some of these games specifically, but with Colorado losing, now their only chance really is to make the Big 12 championship game and win that thing because they have three losses. And I just don't see them putting a three-loss Colorado team in unless they get that auto bid. BYU at this point, they need some help to get back into it. Would they put a two-loss BYU team who doesn't seem to be playing their best football right now in? I don't think so. I'll tell you teams that do probably deserve an at-large bid would be somebody like an Arizona State or an Iowa State, who those teams do look like they're playing their best football right now. But I don't think the committee has a lot of respect for the Big 12. I don't think the committee has a lot of respect for the football that's played in this conference because it's not the SEC, it's not the Big 10. And so I think the Big 12 really missed an opportunity yesterday to potentially put themselves in a spot to get another at-large bid. And it's not just yesterday. I'm not trying to rail on just those teams that lost. I'll talk a little more about Colorado here in a minute. But Kansas State had that opportunity a couple of weeks ago, and they kept dropping games, right? And so, the Big 12 really, and maybe that's just all of college football this year. And so, like you said, the SEC is the Big 12 with better marketing, right? Like that's been said a few times. And, maybe that is the case. Like everybody has dropped opportunities. The SEC did it in a massive way this week. The ACC with Miami losing a couple of weeks ago to Georgia Tech, maybe they kind of did it to themselves too. So maybe it's just everybody. Maybe it's not just one conference, but it felt like yesterday the Big 12 had a big chance. And just unfortunately, it wasn't able to take advantage of it. That Colorado game, man, shout out to Kansas, first of all. They played a really good game. Colorado's defense, for the first time this year, really let them down. And Kansas scored on just about every drive they had. And Colorado just could not find an answer. I mean, a shout out to Colorado for attempting to come back when it was 21-7. It was 7. It looked like they really had no shot. When it wasn't 21-7, 27. And to come all the way back, they made it 23-21 at one point. It felt like, okay, well, there's the offense going. They're getting things going. They're getting things rolling the right way. The screen pass to Hunter, the other touchdown to Hunter. I mean, they were rolling. They were getting their offense clicking. And then just from there, Kansas kind of bowed up and locked up. And Kansas is playing some of the best football in the Big 12 right now. If they'd have played like this all year, they'd probably be in the Big 12 championship with a chance to go to the playoff. Unfortunately, they obviously didn't start the year like this. But yeah, Colorado's defense let it down. Its offense wasn't super sharp either. Offensive line, too many penalties. Seton had an okay day, but a lot of penalties down the stretch. And they just couldn't get back into it. Kansas did enough offensively. Their offense was actually really good. They scored on just about every drive they had. Tough to beat a team when they're scoring every possession they get, right? Even if they are field goals, those field goals are starting to add up. And same thing. BYU, man, you let Arizona State get out to a huge lead at home, and they were able to, I don't want to say coast like they let their foot off the, but like they were able to kind of coast to a victory and coast to a win. And some weird decision making there at the end of that one with Kenny, but ultimately they found a way to get the win and got to rush the field twice, right? And so Arizona State now in a position to, if they can beat a rival here at the end of the year, they're going to the Big 12 championship. Iowa State, if they can win their game this weekend, they're going to the Big 12 championship, right? A little bit muddier waters for Colorado, a little bit muddier waters for BYU. Can those teams get back into it? Absolutely. It's not a done deal. It's not solidified by any means. Those teams just don't control their own destiny now, though. They are going to need some help. Again, Arizona State, you win and you're in. Iowa State, you win and you're in. The other teams need a little bit of help. Colorado, they need two of the three teams that are in this two-team logjam to lose, not being themselves, right? They need a BYU loss and an Arizona State loss, or an Iowa State and a BYU loss. Or anyway, there's four teams. I don't need to run through every single pairing of two teams, but they need two of them to lose. So either Arizona State drops to Arizona, BYU drops to Houston, Iowa State drops to Kansas State, which that's probably the most likely of the three. I think Colorado could get that one in their favor, but they need one more to drop. They need Arizona State to drop or BYU to drop as well, and they'll be back in it, right? They'll be back into the mix. Obviously, they need to win their game as well, and then BYU needs the same thing. Needs BYU just actually needs one of the two teams ahead of them to lose. So if BYU wins and let's say Kansas State wins, which Kansas State it will be a slight dog, I think, in that game, but it's going to be pretty close. Could be a pick 'em. It could be somewhere within 3 points. BYU wins and Kansas State wins, and BYU will go. So BYU a little bit easier path than Colorado specifically, but still not necessarily easy. But yeah, I don't think that anybody's getting that second at large bid. I don't think BYU at 10-2 is playing well enough right now down the stretch. If they had lost games early in the year and they were on fire working their way up, that'd be one thing. BYU feels like they're kind of going the other way. They're in a little bit of a free fall. And so I don't see them getting it. Colorado, 3 losses total. Don't see them getting an at-large bid. They're going to have to win the Big 12 championship, in my opinion, to get in. That doesn't take anything away from their season. If they end up going 9-3 and then win 10 in a bowl game, that's still a heck of a year. It's just a year where you're going to say, man, if we had just found a way to win one more of those games, what could have been? And then Arizona State or Iowa State, somebody would end up getting their third loss in that Big 12 championship game. And the committee has said they're not going to punish teams for losing their conference championship. I think they're full of crap when it comes to the Big 12. I think they will punish the Big 12 championship game loser, and they will keep them out, right? I think that we're not going to punish the loser of the championship game. Was meant to protect the Big 10 and the SEC. You can think I'm wrong. You can think I'm a hater. Whatever. I don't care. I'm just telling you that's not what I would do. I'd put, based on the football they're playing right now, I'd put Arizona State in no matter what. I mean, now if they lose to Arizona and then they lose, yeah, of course I'm not going to put them in at that point. But they beat Arizona, they get to 10-2, and they go to their conference championship game. Unless they lose by 40, I'm putting Arizona State in. I think they're playing some of the best football in college football right now. Certainly better than the SEC teams that are getting blown out by Oklahoma or losing to Florida on the road. I'd put them in. Is the committee going to? No, they're not. But I would. All right. You're talking about, South Carolina could be in with a win against Clemson. Okay. What? But we're not putting Arizona State in. Right. So, yeah, it's a double standard, but it's not one that I see changing. Colorado plays on Friday afternoon, 12 Eastern. So they'll know if they're alive or not and know who to root for on Saturday. I do expect them to win. I'll preview that game at some point this week on the channel, so make sure you're subscribed. But it will put more pressure on the other teams if they do win because they'll know they have a little bit less wiggle room. BYU is against Houston. That is a game that ESPN says BYU has like an 86% chance to win. Arizona State. ESPN says Arizona State has about a 70% chance to win that one. And then Kansas State and Iowa State. ESPN gives Iowa State about a 58% chance to win that one. So there's certainly upsets possible. This thing certainly isn't decided. But if the favorites hold, it's going to be Iowa State versus Arizona State in the Big 12 championship with a trip to the college football playoff on the line. Something that none of us expected those two teams to be in the championship game. But a credit to their coaches, a credit to Campbell and Dillingham for getting things done and moving in a very positive direction for both of those programs. So, hey, let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Again, a rough one for Colorado, a rough one for BYU. Arizona State, Iowa State, probably feeling pretty good right now. I'll be feeling even better if they both win this weekend. We'll preview all of it. Maybe we'll talk with Drake or somebody this week about it. But I appreciate you guys for tuning in, as always, to College Football Addiction.